Hello YouTube, it is Jack here. I hope you are all doing well out in sunny Bikeland. Here I am today in, well, not so sunny really, Bikeland of Worthing, West Sussex, in the suburbs, about to be taken out by some guy on a bike. How are you all doing today? Am I allowed to go through here? It doesn't look like I am. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. Boom. So, how are we all doing today? This is going to be a review of my new motorcycle. It is a Kawasaki Ninja 650. And actually, if we look across the road there, we have got the old Kawasaki Ninja 650. So I'm sitting on the brand new version of that. It's a 2020 plate. However, it is not a 2020 bike. This is a 2019 bike. So what is the difference between the 2020 and the 2019? Actually, to be fair, there is actually quite a bit of difference. There is no engine difference specifically, but there is a new TFT dash. The styling is a little bit sharper on the front. And there is LED front lights, which, in my opinion, the TFT and the LED actually do make a huge difference. Like, seriously, I couldn't justify the price difference because I got this for a steal. I got this motorcycle brand spanking new for £5,300, courtesy of Mr. Alf's Motorcycles in sunny Worthing, where I'm going to ride down to now, and we can have a look at the bike outside. Now the new one is, I think, going for around the 7k mark, so I couldn't justify spending that extra, nearly £2,000 for a TFD and LED. As awesome as the TFT dash looks, and it really actually does, by the way, look like an awesome dash, I just couldn't justify it. So what I'm going to do is, this is just going to be a review that is simply based on my impressions of the bike. I'm not going to give you, like, this does this, and the specs of that, and that is that, and it takes this and does that. I'm not going to do any of that. I am just going to talk about my impressions of the motorcycle, how I found it, what I actually use it for. That's a biggie. But anyway, we're going to pull up into Mr. Alf's Motorcycles here. Here it is. You're going to take me out, and we can have a look at the bike. There's me. It's amazing being a biker, isn't it? Seeing yourself in mirrors or in shop windows. Right, I've got an airbag on, so I'm just going to unclip myself from that, jump off the bike and have a look. So, Alf's Motorcycles, Worthing, good place, really good place. The guys in here are good, they're good guys. So, here we have it, Kawasaki Ninja 650. So you might be looking at this and thinking, yeah, it's a sports bike, it's a 650, that must mean it's quicker. Oh, what's that on the back? No, nothing, thought it was a scratch. That must mean it's quicker than the ZX6. Now, you are very much mistaken. This may well look like a sports bike, but in fact, to be fair, this is kind of a cuddly, upright, touring, commuting, everyday bike, as opposed to a full-on sports bike. The difference is kind of hard to explain to anyone that doesn't really know a lot about motorcycles. You may well be looking at this bike as a first bike, and that would actually be a great option. So why is the 650 Ninja not as fast and not as kind of focused as the ZX6? Because it doesn't really, on paper, make a lot of sense. If it's got more CCs, why would it not be quicker? Why would it not be more focused? Well, the simple answer is it's how the engine delivers the power. This is a twin. This is a parallel twin. Now this is producing, and again, do not quote me on these figures, somewhere around, I think it's the 70 to 80 brake horsepower. I think it's actually around 70. Whereas the ZX6, which is an inline 4 motorcycle, is producing way north of 100 brake horsepower. I think it's around 120 odd brake. May even be more than that, to be honest. It might be more like, 115, 120, 125 odd. So why is that? Well, it's the way that the engines actually produce the power. The inline 4 is going to give you a huge amount of revs. and you're going to be right up in the power band, and you're really going to be hammering it. This thing is more low and torquey. Now, if you are a new rider, this thing has got more than enough power. To be fair, if you are any rider, this thing has got more than enough power. This thing is going to do any car on the road. It's going to embarrass a lot of bikes on the road. This is a very, very, very good machine, and I actually think for UK roads, you do not need more than about sort of 70 to 80 brake horsepower. That is absolutely more than enough. I actually think that this 600 class is the pièce de résistance of the kind of the biking class. This is, I just love it. I absolutely love it. So I'm very, very, very lucky. I actually own 4 motorcycles. I have a Harley-Davidson Sportster 1200. I have this little bad boy. I have a Suzuki GSX-S 750, kind of a naked sports bike. And then I have a little Honda PCX 125 scooter, which I absolutely love, despite the fact everyone takes the piss out of me about it. But it is the best bike for getting around town. But anyway, enough of scooters. Let's talk about this. So why did I buy this? Basically, I bought this on a whim. I walked into Alf's. I didn't want to buy this. I spoke to Nick, and it was a good deal, so I bought it. Simple as that. And the reason I bought it was it's got these lovely kind of upright bars. Rather than having the really focused clip-ons, it's got these bars that are raised quite high, and that makes for an extremely comfortable bike. Now, before the coronavirus kicked in, I was going to the Northwest 200 bike races over in Northern Ireland. So my plan was actually to ride this up to Scotland, to Stranraer, to cross to Northern Ireland, I love watching people trying to park. Unbelievable. Ride over to Northern Ireland, or get the ferry over to Northern Ireland, go to the Northwest 200, watch the racing, come back, tour all of Scotland, the Highlands, blah, 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 and then ride it back. And that was my plan for this. It was going to be a touring bike and then a general just go out and have fun bike. I like riding kind of smaller CC bikes faster rather than riding big CC bikes slower. So I actually think this is a funner bike to be out on UK roads in many respects than a 1000cc sports bike. I really do. So what have I done to the bike? I've only had it, probably a couple of months, and to be fair, about 6 weeks odd of those couple of months I couldn't ride it because of the lockdown. I chose not to ride. I didn't want to burden the NHS anyway. So what have I done? Double bubble, black screen, Amazon job, Chinese. Couldn't believe it. Normally when I buy Amazon Chinese and eBay Chinese stuff, it doesn't work, nothing bolts on. This thing went straight on. So happy. I think it was about 25 quid. So happy with it. Completely changes the look of the front of the bike. That kind of Perspex clear Kawasaki screen, don't like that at all. Very nice. Pretty, very nice. What else? We have put on a rear cowl. Now you're probably going to think, wow, this guy's cheap. But again, Chinese knockoff, not the real deal. You can see things here like the little bubble. See that? That's a made in China bubble. You wouldn't get that little bit of paint scuffing on a Kawasaki one. However, I paid, I think, again, it was £30 as opposed to, I think, Kawasaki, you can add 100 quid onto that. And I wasn't willing to pay 130 odd quid for the cowl, although it does completely change the back of the bike. Now, I have put a smaller plate on the back. Now, I have not put a tail tidy. Normally, the first thing I would do when I get a new motorcycle is I would take off this ugly mess and I would put a tail tidy on there. However, there is a reason I have not. When I bought this bike, because I was taking it touring, I have a Shad huge, I think it's a Shad 46 litre top box that goes on the back there. So I couldn't actually fit the Shad brackets and have a tail tidy. So all I could do to clean the back up a little bit, I have cut off the highly offensive here, and on the other side there were two little reflectors like you get on a 7-year-old's BMX. Cut them off and put on a smaller plate, cleans it up a little bit. Next week, in fact on Tuesday of this week, this stock exhaust is coming off, and I am having a Black Widow, I think it's a 200mm unit put on there. So that exhaust is going to be gone. I've taken off the rear pillion pegs. I haven't put blankers on because, to be honest, the RNG blankers are like 35, 40 quid. And I'm not really willing to pay that, if I'm being perfectly honest. I've just put the bolts back in and I'm just going to leave it alone. I've got the quad lock on there, which I think is just a must. I've got on my airbag, I've got a Helite airbag unit that I use. So that's on there that just, clips in. Anything else that I've done? Screen, rear, exhaust is going on. Oh, RNG, just tank protection on the front there, and Oxford grips. I live in the UK, so Oxford heated grips. I live in the UK, They are a must. The final thing I had put on there, because again, this was going to be well, it still will be a touring machine. I got the power socket for the sat-nav, 12-volt socket there. So as I said, the difference between this machine and the 2020 machine is a TFT dash and LED lights, tiny little bit sharper, the actual styling itself. But again, not a great deal. Doesn't look that different. So let me clip myself back in here. So, what do I think of the bike? Am I happy with it? Was it worth paying 5,300 odd quid for? The answer is yes, absolutely. It is so much fun. It's so much fun, and it's so light. I mean, the other motorcycles I own, as I say, the GSX-S 750 is a great bike, absolutely fantastic bike. But you do feel the weight when you're on it. I mean, it is a lot quicker than this. Obviously, there's a hell of a lot more power than this. But as I say, you do feel the weight. When you get on this thing, in stark contrast, there's just no weight. I mean, this thing is just so... I know that people use the word flickable in YouTube reviews a lot, but this thing is so flickable. I mean, it is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, for that reason, I love it. As I say, I think the power is perfect for UK roads. Absolutely perfect. You know, that kind of 70 to 80 brake horsepower, I think, is the sweet spot. Yeah, the gearbox, as I say, is silky smooth. There's no quick shifter on here. You know, having a quick shifter would be lovely. But again, it's a 650 kind of, you know, commutery bike. I mean, I personally don't think it's really necessary, but I mean, each to their own. Speed-wise, I think top end you're going to get about 130 odd out of this. Again, more than enough for UK roads. You're going to end up in jail if you're up at that kind of speed. And getting up to 70 and sitting on, you know, motorways / highways, again, very easy. You know, you're going to get up to 70 in no time. No time at all. There's the beautiful sea, isn't it pretty? So where are we again? We are in Lancing now, going off towards Brighton. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take you along the seafront a little bit, and then we are going to kind of hook up, and we are going to go on a bit of sort of quicker road, a bit of motorway style road, just get you up to sort of 70 and show you how the bike performs at that kind of speed, whether or not it's a bike that you can do that with, which it absolutely is. So who is this bike for? I've actually done a previous review of one of these bikes, although it was the KRT edition a couple of years back, and I said then, this bike is for everybody. Truly, this bike is for everybody, and I stand by that. This bike is for absolutely anybody. This could be for experienced riders looking for a lower cc bike just to have fun on. This bike could be for new riders. This bike could be for returning riders. This bike could be for female riders who are a little bit shorter because the height of it is you know, well, it's low basically. Are you going to move over? No? Yes? Good man. Yeah, it's just a great all-rounder, and that's the thing about this bike. It is an all-rounder. You can really get on it and just enjoy yourself. It's not a scary motorcycle, and I think that's one of the things about it that's so great for the new rider. If you came from your test and you got on this as your first big bike, it would be perfect. Absolutely perfect. I think the power is just enough that you wouldn't ever get bored. I mean, you could keep this bike, well, I mean, to be honest, you could keep this bike forever and you wouldn't get bored. I mean, I've been riding for about 20 years and I think this bike's fantastic. But certainly if you were trying to work your way up, as it were, this bike would be fantastic for that. Absolutely fantastic. You know, you really could work your way up with it, and you really could just hone your skills, really. Again, the weight, you know, it's kind of one of those things that people... Let Mr. Policeman go by. It's kind of one of those things that people people very often with new motorcycles or with their first big bike, they will drop them. I'm not talking about crashing them. I'm talking about dropping them. And I think that is where this bike has a huge advantage, because it is so light that if you did have that horrible moment where you kind of, you know, were standing at the traffic lights or whatever, went to pull away, stalled it, drop, I think you would have far more of a chance of holding this thing up than many other 600cc bikes, because this thing is just so light. So the competition, what competition have we got for this? We've got quite a lot of competition for this, really, and to be fair, the competition of this is a very, very, very close, and they're all pretty good class. So you've got the SV650 from Suzuki, a bit long in the tooth, been around a long time. 650cc V-twin, again, a great first big bike, or a first bike after you've passed your test. You have the Yamaha MT-07, a twin, parallel twin, again, a great bike. I think possibly the funnest of the class. Again, very, very, very light. The styling of the MT-07 can be a little bit kind of Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. Personally, I love it. I love the big rear fat wheel on it. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. Again, you have the Ninja 650. You also have the Z650, which is essentially this bike, but the naked version. If those of you who don't like this front fairing and don't like the look of the sports bike, you want a kind of more angular, aggressive looking kind of transformery look, then yeah, the Z650 could well be for you. There are other bikes in the class that I think are worth having a look at, but I think personally are a little bit different. So you have the CB650, which is going to be the CB650, and you can get that in, hello mate, you can get that in faired, or you can get that in naked. I think the faired is the CBR650, on the CB650, I think it's F and R possibly. But anyway, the CB650, the Honda. Now, the reason I say that's worth a look but a little bit different is that is an inline 4. The power is going to be quite a lot more. It's going to be around the 100 brake horsepower mark. It's basically an old-fashioned Hornet inline 4 engine chucked into a sharper styled bike. You know, as are a lot of these kind of 650 classes. I mean, this is essentially an ER6 engine that's just been chucked into a sharper bike. The MT-07, that is a kind of a new breed of engine. You know, that came, that was, you know, a new one, as it were. But yeah, the CB650, that's from the Hornet. Other bikes, sort of, you know, you could consider, if you're having the money, you could have the babiest of the monsters, but again, you are paying for Italian Exotica. That's going to be a V-twin, and yeah, that Italian Exotica unfortunately comes with a bit of a price tag. So you're going to be looking at more like kind of the 8 to a little bit higher than 8 mark. And again, same thing with the Triumph Street Triple. You are paying more for the brand, and personally, I think the Street Triple is a I don't know, I'm sort of loath to say not a good choice for a first big bike, because I think that the Street Triple actually could be a great first big bike, but you would have to be restrained. There is power there, and I think although it's a light bike, and although it's a bike that, you know, I think could be utilised well for a first big bike, I think there are better choices. Also, when you're paying that kind of money for the Monster and the Street Triple, you have to remember that if you are a new rider, you have a high chance of dropping it, you have a high chance of having a little crash. You know, if you drop this, if you crash this, same with the MT-07, you know, same with the SV650, it's going to hurt. You know, you're going to be sad, you're going to be upset, but you're not going to be as upset as if you're going to drop your brand new Street Triple, or if you drop your brand new Monster, or I wouldn't be anyway. I think if I dropped a Street Triple or a Monster, I would be very upset. So yeah, so around town, what is this bike like? So as you've just seen, I've just been kind of around town. It's great, it's very forgiving. The clutch is very, very, very light. Almost light to the point of, you know, you don't even really know you're using it. Let's get past there. Hello, people on bikes. It was all very kind of Dutch there, wasn't it? Clutch is incredibly light, very, very, very forgiving. The noise, this exhaust is frankly pathetic. I mean, the exhaust is actually embarrassing, and I mean, it really is embarrassing. You can't hear the thing. It sounds like a lawnmower, and that's not an exaggeration. It literally sounds like a lawnmower. I go outside and my neighbours are all standing there, and you know, I've got my biker gear on, I've got my cool looking black bike, and you know, I think that they're expecting some roar when I start this thing up, and you start it and you don't even know it's on. So why am I saying that relevantly for around town? Now, you could argue that around town, that's a great thing, because you're not really bothering anyone, and there is an argument to that, and I kind of agree with that. Where are you going? There we go. However, personally for me, I prefer a louder exhaust around town. I subscribe, and we can have a completely different debate about this, and we can go on for hours about this. I subscribe to the Loud Pipe Save Lives paradigm. I have 2 other bikes with loud pipes, and the difference from not having the loud pipes, which was the case for the first couple of months with all of them, to having loud pipes, to do with people getting out of my way, to do with seeing how people react in the mirrors, was just unbelievable. People say, oh, they can't hear you because you're behind them. They can hear you. They can hear you. They know you're there. They move. I'm not even going to debate that. They may be aggressive sounding. They may annoy people. I understand that, and I get that, and I get what that's about. But personally, I would rather be alive and able to have this debate than dead and kind of not annoyed anyone. So anyway, around town, yeah, as I say, it's very, very, very quiet. So in some respects, that could be dangerous. People don't really hear you coming. If you're filtering through them, they don't know you're there. However, on the opposite side, you're not annoying anyone. So there are both sides to the argument, and that's why I kind of mention it as a concept of it being about being around town. Let me just open some vents in here. We're getting quite hot in this Arai. As I say, it's very, very light round town. The clutch is very forgiving. The brakes are pretty good. The brakes are not absolutely fantastic, as you would not expect them to be on a budget 650. But yeah, you know, they're up to the job, as long as you're not absolutely hammering it. Now, again, same thing with suspension. Suspension is fine. That's it. The suspension is fine. If you are pushing on this thing, yeah, it's, you know, it's not up to standard. But for someone who is just simply, let's get around this guy. For someone who is just simply, you know, going around town doing bits and bobs, this thing is absolutely fine, suspension-wise and brakes-wise. You're going to have no problems at all, especially as a new rider. You're going to have no problems at all. I'm sorry I keep mentioning the new rider thing as if this bike is only for new riders. It really, really, really isn't, but I'm imagining that a fair amount of people that are going to be watching this review are going to be new riders if you are watching a review for a Ninja 650. Now, does it deserve the Ninja name? Does it? I would actually argue that this bike is not a Ninja. You know, to me, Ninjas should only be the super sports versions of the Kawasaki range. So for me, that should be the ZX-10R, the ZX-6R, you know, those kind of bikes. It shouldn't really be the 650 kind of twins. I think that's just marketing on Kawasaki's behalf. You know, they slap a thing on that says Ninja and they're hoping that people that don't really know the difference between the super sports and these will think, oh, it's a Ninja, it must be incredibly quick and it must be incredibly focused and it must be like the sportiest bike ever, and we're going to go out and immediately get our knees down. It's not really, you know, I don't think it personally deserves the Ninja badge. As I say, it's a forgiving, nice, easy, cuddly bike. So would I recommend it? 100%, and I would recommend it to anyone. And I would even go so far as to say I would recommend the new one with the TFT dash and the LED lights at £7,000 as well, even though the engine is the same and it's basically the same bike. I still think that at £7,000 it's worth it. Like, I really do. It's that good a bike. That was very nice. That woman there was just going around collecting other people's rubbish. I do like people like that. Yeah, so I think it's fantastic. Other little very, very quick things. Mirrors are great. And I think the mirrors are actually nice looking. You know, I wouldn't bother with any aftermarket stuff with the mirrors here. I think they're nice looking. They're that lovely kind of Kawasaki, kind of like almost diamond shape. So what else? Mirrors, brakes, the actual, you know, the idiot dials and all the sort of stuff on the front here. There's nothing here. You know, lights, indicators, horn, starter. That's it. Couldn't be simpler. Literally could not be simpler. There's no modes, there's no sort of map stuff, there's nothing. It's just off you go. Traction control doesn't exist. You get on the bike and off you go. In terms of the actual dials, you've got fuel, which obviously is good. You've got temperature. You've got a couple of trips. You've got miles. You've got your speedo, which again is nice and clear to the right. So it's an LCD digital display on one side, and on the, so here we are. Sorry, we're just going to come onto a little bit of faster road. So just getting up to speed. So up to 70 is so simple. You know, it's just a very, very, very nice, easy bike, you know, and it really is a nice, easy bike. And then just sitting around the kind of 60 to 70 mark, just effortless, you know, 4,500, 5,000, just effortless. So the clock is nice and easy to read. What I actually do like about it, I mean, I would have liked the TFT, but what I do like about it is that on the left side you've got this lovely clear the rev counter, which again is just very old school, clock style. I like it a lot. I really like it a lot. On the right hand side you've got the LCD display. That LCD display, as I said, it's got a gear indicator, which again for new riders is going to be fantastic. It's got your clock, it's got your trips, it's got your miles per hour, it's got how many miles you've done, and it's got range. It's got a couple of other things like, you know, whether you're in eco mode and all that kind of hippie stuff. So there's everything you need for a motorcycle, just everything you need. And I think this is one of those bikes that if you got it for a first bike, or if you got it as a kind of a second bike or as a commuter bike, you are going to have no complaints. So guys, would I recommend the Ninja 650 from Kawasaki? Absolutely. If you're thinking about this, or the SV650, or the MT-07, or the CBR 650F, whatever it's called, yes, this one is great. Well, they're all great, but this one is great. It's a winner. It's an absolute winner. So guys, get down to your local Kawasaki dealers. They're great with test rides. Alf, Stan and Worthing, brilliant with test rides. Get down there, get out on one. You know, don't feel guilty about asking for a test ride as well. I went for a test ride on this 2 years ago in 2017, 3 years ago actually now. Yeah, I went for a test ride on this in 2017, and I got off it and I didn't really think a great deal more about it. I enjoyed it a lot, it was great, but it stayed in my head. And then I went in there 3 years later, and that's the power of test rides, you know. I went in there 3 years later, I spoke to Nick, completely on a whim. There you go, there's $5.5 grand or 5,300 quid. So that's how test rides work. You might not buy it that day, but you might come back and think, yeah, you know, I'll have that, I'll have that, I'll have that. So go out, enjoy, ride, be safe, wear appropriate gear, nod at other bikers. We are a community, and I'll see you later on. Take care guys, bye bye.